All right. Now we're cool. All right. So like I said, we have a special guest with us. If you want to hop over this way, we have Todd from JPL.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Todd. Let's make sure they can hear you and everything. And
Well, I'm delighted to be on your show. Thank you
Cool.
for having me tonight. It's very exciting to be in New York City always. Maybe a typically underrepresented area for the planets and space science.
right?
But the Intrepid's done a beautiful job. They snagged one of the 4 space shuttles behind us. Tonight we're giving a lecture with one of my co-workers at JPL on the science side, and we're talking about ocean worlds, water worlds in the solar system.
Gotcha.
And I've been at JPL 28 plus years.
You've
and
been at JPL for a very long time.
Yeah, first job right out of college and wanted to work there since 8th grade. Very lucky guy. And actually my whole career pretty much has been on missions that were exploring these water worlds. So I had 7
Exploring
years.
water worlds.
So we used to think before we started planetary exploration that we had one water world in the entire solar system,
That was
which
us.
was Earth.
Right, Earth. Right?
And
Clearly, I mean, it's blue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then also we say it's in the Goldilocks zone. It's not too cold, it's not too hot. It's
I like it.
just right for life to exist because it's the right distance from the sun for
Certain
liquid water.
type of star, a certain type of distance. There's not too much energy coming from the star. There's not enough energy coming from the star, like Pluto or someplace it's cold.
Exactly, perfect.
It's just right.
And then the big
porridge.
surprise through all of this was I worked the Galileo mission to Jupiter for 7 years.
Right.
And we started to discover there was a moon there called Europa that seemed to have a subsurface liquid water ocean. And
Right.
now we believe, I'm tipping my hat a little bit for what Lori will talk about during the
Wait till you hear all the
talk.
missions he's been on. You can tip your hat all you want. Like, go for it.
Well, we think there's 2 to 3 times as much liquid water underneath an ice shell on that moon than the entire Earth. So if you really want to say where's the ocean world in the solar system, you'd have to say Europa more than the Earth. So
No kidding.
So that's what's exciting. The other thing that happened through this whole time was on the Earth, and Lori's much more the expert on this. She'll talk about it during our speech. We found that very well could be the source of Earth's early life. These hydrothermal vents, black smokers in the under part of the sea. And what we found extremophiles. Life forms. Life forms. If you give it just half a chance, a little bit of liquid water, source of heat or energy,
bit of energy, right?
Organic molecules.
Yeah.
Life is in abundance on Earth. Now that doesn't prove it's elsewhere, but those 3 ingredients we're now finding in multiple places in the solar system.
Gotcha.
Doesn't mean there's life, but it means the raw 3 materials to form life as we know it
The
on
building
Earth.
blocks or whatever.
Exactly.
It sounds like an episode of Cosmos or something. The building blocks of life, like that sort of thing, right?
Met Carl Sagan. That was one of the thrills of my life at JPL. It was really fun back in '92.
So we have a whole presentation that's going to be going on later. We've got Lori Barge as well.
That's correct.
Who's going to be talking. We're going to be streaming that as well afterwards. You've been at JPL for a really long time.
I have. And,
You've worked on every mission that I've ever heard of.
Yeah, I tend to get around there. I kind of follow where the fun and the excitement is. I love flying them. Some people love designing or building or doing studies, and that's all very necessary, important work. I just love the thrill of actually joining right before launch, watching them blast off, controlling them in space, keep getting them on their destinations, pulling in the science, and then, as an engineer, still trying to understand the science and share the thrill of planetary science with the public.
So you say flying them, right? You're a propulsion engineer.
Propulsion engineer.
Senior propulsion engineer, right? Okay.
This means I'm an old guy, yeah.
An old propulsion engineer, nice. So as a propulsion engineer, what do you do? It's not like you have a joystick and you're like, oh, let's go take a picture of this or something.
That's exactly right. So everything, Isaac Newton's mostly in the driver's seat.
Right.
Most things we do, and most things are ballistic trajectories. So basically, we're just coasting most of the time.
Along the rails that the rocket sets up, right?
Except for, I've worked an occasional ion propulsion mission. Deep Space One was a technology demo, and then the Dawn mission, exactly.
Dawn as well, nice.
I was on that for 4 years, and we studied the 2 largest man-built asteroids, Ceres and Vesta.
Right.
Ceres also might be a water world. It might have some subsurface liquid water as well.
Maybe more common than we think. We didn't see any on Mars when we first went, right? We're like, oh, there's canals and stuff.
Right.
We didn't find it. That doesn't mean there's not water everywhere. And the more we learn, the more we get out there and explore, the more it seems we're finding, right?
And now we know there's water ice there, and I think there's a European discovery near one of the poles of a subsurface liquid water lake. So We know it's there, and the more we learn, the number of vistas with liquid water in the solar system just keeps opening up.
Right.
So then for propulsion, generally, even if Isaac Newton's in the driver's seat, we need small trajectory corrections or orbit insertion burns or these fine maneuvers.
Right, little corrections and stuff like that.
Yeah, just to get the very proper flybys, the conditions right to perform gravity assist, for example, to get to the next orbit.
Right.
So I was on Cassini, a Saturn orbiting mission for 21
on Cassini
years.
too. Who's heard of Cassini?
And so I had propulsion guy on that. It was a job of a lifetime. It was really fun.
Wow.
We also love that, and we're going to hear about it tonight because it has a little moon called Enceladus, an
Right.
icy ball that's 500 miles across and 500 kilometers, 300 miles.
Either
And
way, they wouldn't
tiny,
know.
tiny. And it
Wouldn't know the
should be
difference.
boring, geologically dead, unchanged in the 4.5 billion years since
Right.
the solar system formed. It's not.
That's the one that has the plumes or something
Plumes.
coming off of it.
Active water ice geysers that shoot out into space. The press dubbed them cold faithfuls, and they form Saturn's E-ring. And it was
Yeah.
always a mystery of, we knew it was inhabiting the E-ring, but what was the source of the E-ring? Well, now we know it's Enceladus. The big mystery is, why is Enceladus geologically active? Why is
Right.
that tiny world? Lori probably knows far more about that
Yeah.
than I do. But it was really exciting to steer Cassini over almost 300 orbits at Saturn over 13 years. We did 26 flybys of Enceladus, I think. One was as close as 25
kilometers.
16 miles, so that's about 82,000 feet. So we're about twice as high
As a commercial
as
airline.
a commercial airliner flies above the Earth. And this is 900 million miles, 1.5 billion kilometers away from
There's
Earth.
like a signal delay of how many minutes?
We're about 70 plus or minus 10 for
70?
or 80 plus or minus 10
80
for
plus or
Cassini.
minus 10. So it's not like you have a joystick and you're like
No.
flying it in real time. This is programming the craft to follow the trajectory.
Exactly, and even more so for my new mission. I'm actually on Voyager now. My
Right.
childhood dream mission, what inspired me as an 8th grade boy. We're 41 and a half years after launch, still talking to both spacecraft. The one-way light time there for the closest one is Voyager 2 is 17 hours.
17 hours.
One way, and then Voyager 1 is 20 hours.
So wait, y'all have to understand what that means, right? We have two spacecraft that are sort of, I'm going to say, exiting the solar system.
Yeah.
A little, kind of.
Yeah,
right?
we can talk about that.
We want to talk about that, right? But we have these two spacecraft that were launched 41 years ago.
That's
right?
correct.
Before I was born. All right, a couple years before I was born.
Way to rub it in, but yes, go ahead.
Sorry.
That's all right, it's all right.
I'm trying to give context here. These spacecraft have been flying away from the sun for 41 years, right? They're still responding to commands. We
They
can
are.
still talk to them. We can still get science from them.
We do every day, but you have to be patient, right?
Right.
Of course, because if there's a problem, let's say with Voyager 1, it's 20 hours till we know about it.
Right.
20 hours to send an instantaneous fix.
So you can do
basically-
something.
Yeah, so it basically has to take care of itself for 40 hours.
It's almost 2 days.
Almost 2 days.
So if there's something that goes on, something happens on the spacecraft, that's do we know how many billion miles away they are?
Yeah, Voyager 1 is about 13 billion miles, 21 billion kilometers.
13 billion miles.
So we're about
away.
5 times further than Pluto. And we talked about, has it left the solar system? There's lots of ways to define that.
Right.
It picked up enough gravity assists at Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune in Voyager 2's case, and Jupiter and Saturn, Voyager
Right.
1's case, to have solar system escape velocity. So it's definitely leaving the sun.
It's leaving.
It is not leaving the Milky Way. It doesn't have Milky Way escape velocity, so
Right.
it will forever, we're at the center of the Milky Way about every 225 million years, just like the Earth and
Just
Sun
like
do.
the Earth and Sun.
But because of that old record on board,
Right.
because this is Earth's greatest hits.
Oh,
and if you don't know what a
yeah.
record is, ask your parents. But back in '77,
You don't know what a record is.
I think vinyl's cool now,
Yeah.
right? So
There's an emoji that looks like a record. I think. Like, there's an emoji.
that's great. So of course that was state of the art in '77, and we took Earth's greatest hits: music, pictures, languages, greetings, sounds, put
Right.
it on the side of the record. And the day our Voyager scientific mission ends, when we get our last signal from whichever spacecraft survives the longest, we're a little jealous because that's the day the Voyager Golden Record mission begins.
Gotcha.
And that mission goes for billions to trillions of years. And if we're not careful, hopefully we won't mess up this beautiful planet, and we'll learn how to live in peace and harmony.
Right.
But if the worst happens, someone said very profoundly and prophetically, they said if we don't get it right, those Voyager records may be the only proof we ever existed.
we ever existed, wow.
So they took a lot of care into getting the right stuff on the record.
That's like goosebump material almost. Like,
Although now the Beatles turned down the chance to be on the record. So
they turned down
they
the chance to be
did.
on the
So,
record.
but see, we get to keep the Beatles for us. So it's kind of fun.
So
But
you work on that mission now.
I do,
right?
and that whole story. I probably won't have much time to talk about it during the main. So
I said it in an email that we could probably talk with Todd for a few hours. You work at JPL, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know where JPL is. Our camera's not like it's mobile. Maybe we could come out and visit you at JPL one day.
That'd be fun.
But there's just keep on.
Well,
going.
just if you stay there long enough, you work a lot of missions. But to me, I always felt my career had gone mostly full circle because, as an 8th grade boy, I saw pictures of Voyager and Jupiter in National Geographic.
Right. Not on the internet.
Right. No, way pre-internet. So this is like 80, 81.
Right.
And I didn't even know about the magazine. I was visiting my grandparents in western Kansas during wheat farming season, a little bored. I sure didn't want to work or harvest wheat. That's way too much work. This kind of strange explorer gene and wandering spirit, but I couldn't go anywhere. They loved to travel. I loved it, but we couldn't do anything because of the harvest. So she said, I have a magazine you'll love. So she turned me on for the first time to National Geographic. Okay. And I read 60 issues, 5 years back to back. And it took me to every corner. Well, there are no corners of planet Earth, not a flat Earth. I want to make it abundantly clear. But
I like it. He preempts that. He knows.
Preempts it. I know.
Keep it classy, chat. Like, come on. we have people standing by to handle people who say the Earth is flat.
That's great. So as a young kid, I loved seeing the Earth at all these vistas, and it really kicked in this explorer gene. But because of my advanced age, the time was 80, 81.
Right.
And this is right when Voyager had flown by Jupiter and Saturn. So there were feature cover articles.
The new information sort of coming back.
And as soon as I saw those pictures of the planets and the moons, 8th grade, I said, I got to work at JPL. This looks so amazing. Got a bachelor's and master's at MIT, straight there after grad school, been there 30 years.
30 years.
And I did 7 years on Galileo, which was the first Jupiter orbiter.
Right.
21 years on Cassini, which was the first Saturn orbiter. In other words, those are the logical extensions of the next missions to those gas giant planets after Voyager.
It's like we send one, we get a little information, we're like, oh, we need more information, let's send another. That's sort of how we do. We march forward.
Exactly.
Right?
And usually in stages like that, flybys, then orbiters, then maybe landers or landers on the moons, and then rovers, and then eventually sample return, and then the last step would be human exploration.
Right. So you had Cassini in there. Just keep going through all the missions you've worked on.
Well,
Cassini,
Cassini, Galileo, Deep Space One, Dawn. Helped a little bit with Stardust. I worked Mars Exploration Rover, Spirit and Opportunity. And then Curiosity.
Right.
And I'm getting ready to work Mars 2020.
Mars 2020.
So we launch next year. And I haven't crashed one to Mars yet, so they invited me back.
You haven't crashed one to Mars. Wait, so do you work on the landing of the rovers?
What do you work
on? Like,
mostly the cruise stage, which is what the propulsion on the vehicle that carries the entry, descent, and landing system to Mars.
To get them there to the right location on time.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
Just a pinch on the landing system. I let the geniuses handle that in development. JPL. They do. But so far,
30 years at JPL. I don't know if we can't call you not call you a genius.
Well, I'm very lucky. Consultant on a Mercury mission at APL Applied Physics Lab, just helping them out a little bit there.
I think you had Deep Impact in there
Deep
somewhere?
Impact, yeah, that was fun.
Did we shot a comet or something?
Yeah.
What did we do?
Sounds like a teen boy came up, dude, let's hit a comet and see what happens. So we let a comet run over us 23,000 miles an hour and made a big explosion, left a crater, while the mothership watched. And we took data from the mothership and from the impactor on its one-way mission. So that was very cool.
You worked on a mission that it was a spacecraft, and it had a smaller probe aboard, right? And it sort of rendezvoused. It met up with it was Comet?
Yes. What was that? I'll forget the name.
Just go with a Comet.
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 I remember the date. Artificial intelligence smarts to
which is perfectly fine for me to explain to chat what's going on, but it was not too terribly happy with us. All right, it looks like how does the bitrate look from here? What do we look like on the unit? Are we good?
I can't see it.
All right, hang on, chat. Hang on a second.
It's 300, 400.
Yeah, it's really not happy with us over here. Sound is back. You're having some connection issues there, chat. Just wait one while we figure this out. Again, we're at Intrepid Museum. We were at a cool spot over there with the space shuttle, but it didn't take us. Just give us 1 second. Next is it? All right. So let's hit that. Chat. Welcome to live streaming. We literally turned it off and turned it back on again. Do you ever do that with the rovers or with the?
We had to with one of the rovers
Right.
in flight to Mars because we had a huge solar storm.
Right.
And it scared the heck out of us, and we really thought it was the safest thing to do.
Right.
We just held our breath, but luckily everything came back on and everything was good.
I'm gonna get a status check from Twitch chat. Twitch chat, thank you for pointing out that the audio was okay, but the video was not fantastic. How are we now? I'm still here with Todd. Todd's from JPL. They get better images from the other side of the solar system than we get from New York City. That's pretty impressive, honestly. We literally turned the stream off and turned it back on again, but we're good to go. So we were talking about
Great.
all the different missions that you were part of.
Yeah, that could easily fill our remaining time, but I think we covered most of them.
Right.
So, and,
we were talking about the exploration rover, so Spirit Opportunity, Curiosity, the one that's the size of a truck. That rover is
Yeah.
so big. People don't understand how big Curiosity is.
Oh, it's huge. Until you see it in person.
Yeah.
Even, when we finally built a model and saw it, we're like, we're landing that on Mars. It was quite an amazing day. So.
And then you are now on, what are you working on now actively?
So right now, a little over halftime on Voyager. So remember how we said I thought my career had mostly gone full circle working Cassini and Galileo, the first orbiters of those planets.
Right.
But to actually literally be on the mission that inspired me as an 11-year-old.
Right.
or actually more like 14.
14.
That's crazy,
Yeah.
you know. And I'm one of the young guys on Voyager just because the team's been around a while. Ooh, look at the millennial, you know. So it's kind of fun to come in the Voyager team. But just trying to, I tell people it's like Apollo 13 every day,
right?
In the best possible way. Spacecraft are ancient, you know.
They're old.
Just trying to keep things working,
right?
You know, propellant lines are near freezing, and the powers, we lose 4 watts a year, and we're getting low power. Eventually we'll have to start turning off science instrument heaters and then science instruments, and that's a real Sophie's choice, and how do you choose which one? And so if you remember the Apollo 13 when they're coming back to Earth and didn't have enough power and they're scrubbing everything.
And they're trying to figure how do we boot up the spacecraft so that it doesn't pop the breakers or whatever, right? Like,
so I love the challenge of it, and just I always respected him. It was always my first love in planetary science.
Right.
But I've never respected the team more now than living it every day and see the challenges. There's about 10 to 12 of us flying both spacecraft total. You know, just trying to keep these 2 spacecraft fly. I can't believe it. You know. And
all right, so here's a good question, right? Are there any missions out there right now that the same thing could happen with, where somebody who's younger, maybe not even in school yet, right, could hear about these missions and get this imagery back from something, and then they go through school and maybe one day they could work on those missions? Is there anything like that anymore?
You know, there are.
It's a weird question.
And some of them may not be on solar system escape trajectories, but they just may be long-lived.
Right.
We know of many people at JPL, for example, that were inspired in elementary or high school by Spirit and Opportunity.
Spirit and Opportunity,
in fact, the deputy project scientist just announced that. She was in high school, did a tour of JPL, saw the rover landing or being built, something like that, and then ended up being deputy project scientist on the rovers 15 years later for a mission that was supposed to last 3 months.
3 months.
Lori, who you'll speak to next, I don't want to steal her stories, but apparently she was inspired by the pictures of Neptune from Voyager.
Right.
So that was in 1989. And she was, I think, just in elementary school then.
Right.
So, you know, way to rub it in, Lori. But
way to rub it in. We keep getting this.
Because I was a middle school guy getting inspired by the Jupiter flybys and Saturn flybys, which were much earlier.
Right.
But yeah, there's a whole community, and we can inspire those kids. You know, I always say, a little facetious, if I keep one kid out of law school, it's worth all the outreach I do. You know, no, I'm just kidding. But you know, there is a kind of a fostering. These missions inspire future generations. They come and really show us how it's done and improve on what we've done for the future and build new exciting missions.
I have a thing that I say, right? Because we're talking about inspiring kids and younger people and that sort of thing. We play a lot of video games.
Yes.
Right? Because that's what we do. We're Twitch. We play a lot of video games, right? And there's this thing when you're playing a video game where you have to be able to interact with something that might not really exist. Right? And it's interesting because when you're interacting with the missions, the rovers, they're not next to you. You can't go touch them, you can't go see them.
That's right.
For all intents and purposes, for the person sitting at JPL, they're not like a tangible object you could do something with. There's this tele-interface between you and the rovers. So having the ability to sort of get your head around this thing that's on another planet, that's out somewhere else, and in understanding here's how it's oriented and here's how I want it to move. The skills that you build playing video games might be something that would be sort of
might be similar, and
maybe.
we don't take that length for granted. If we do, we find that's when it'll bite us, because our whole success depends on what's called the Deep Space Network.
Right.
These set of
DSN.
giant, DSN. So these giant antenna, and they deliver 99+% of what's asked them to do. And there's more missions than antenna, and we have people at JPL that are like kindergarten teachers. They say, no, you have to share. Project on the planet.
So you have to get time because the Deep Space Network has these massive dishes, and they're powerful enough to talk to